This is a special year-end episode of CRM Audio, the Dynamics 365 podcast. This episode is sponsored by Kingsway Soft. Check out their Winter 2018 release featuring lots of good stuff, including the ability to update the POA table and solve sharing challenges in Dynamics 365. Thousands of enterprise clients from over 70 countries and regions rely on Kingsway Soft to integrate data with various business systems in order to drive their business efficiency and fully leverage their information assets. Kingsway Soft is a leading provider of Microsoft Dynamics integration software, including Dynamics 365, CRM, AX, NAV, GP, SL, as well as many other applications. We thank Kingsway Soft for their support of CRM Audio, the Dynamics 365 podcast. Well, it's the end of 2017, and this has been a fantastic year for us at CRM Audio. We've grown the network to 4 new series and have an episode 3 days a week now. We introduced our mobile app, and we had our first live audience recording when we hit Tip 1000 on CRM Tip of the Day. We really appreciate you listening and sending us your feedback. If you haven't already, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and let us know your feedback. We'd love to hear your suggestions for next year. In this episode, we're going to talk about the past year, and then we'll hear some of the highlights from the year as well as some of our guests from 2017. Thanks for listening.
Well, Sean, Merry Christmas.
And Happy Hanukkah, Merry Festivus, all the rest. There it is. The classic.
A little festive music here for Christmas Day.
Yeah.
Have you opened your presents yet, Sean?
I have. And
what'd you get?
I got some cool stuff. I got a bunch of Star Wars related pop vinyl scenes. So I got the trash compactor scene from episode 4, A New Hope. I got.
Does it actually like compact?
No, but my Lego Death Star compactor does compact, so that's cool. So
cool.
But yeah, I got that. I got Death Star duel with Obi-Wan and Vader. I got the cantina scene where Han shot first. I got that. And I got Cloud City Duel with Luke and Vader. So
awesome.
Yeah, I got a lot of toys.
This is our Christmas spectacular / end of the year episode of CRM Audio. It's been a big year for us.
Really has. It's crazy what a year this has been, and it's flown by. So yeah, it really has.
So like a year ago, we did like one show every 2 weeks. And then we had just started every other week having Scott Sewell do his Power BI podcast. Mm-hmm. We've added on this year. Yeah. We first added podcast about personal productivity in about March. Mm-hmm. Then we added Mark Smith with the Dynamics 365 practice podcast and rounded it all out with At Your Service.
You betcha.
Yeah, and Implement This with Matthew Brennan. Yeah. That's been a really good addition.
That has.
So, a little bit of stats for you, Mr. Number Hobbit. Mm-hmm. We have had, as of the end of the year, 101 episodes released this year.
That's a lot of content.
That is a lot of content. We've really turned into like a nonstop CRMUG summit.
Yeah, I guess we have. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. Our podcasts, if you listen to all of them, it would be longer than going to CRMUG Summit. You could probably go twice. So altogether, I added this up. We've had 55 hours and 40 minutes of solid quality content.
Wow. That's an hour a week. More than an hour a week.
See if you could guess what were the top 3 episodes as far as most listens this year.
Are we saying
they all had guests?
Are we saying by show or the actual episode?
All throughout the whole network. Now, granted, the ones towards the beginning of the year have an advantage because they've been downloaded throughout the year, and every month, all old episodes get downloaded again. But the top 3 are pretty decisive. And they're all from earlier in the year.
I would say one of them must be when I wasn't on it.
No, I think you're actually on every one of them, George. But none of the ones where it's just the 3 of us talking to each other are in the top 3.
No, I meant when you had guests and forgot to invite me. That's
but they're all
episodes.
but all the top 3 are all CRM Audio main episodes.
I have no idea. Just developers one. Just fingers crossed.
Our first episode of 2017 was number 1, which makes sense. It's like the one that's been out for the longest.
What was that one?
It was. I don't even remember what we talked about on that one. But number two is the one. I think it was the first episode we discussed Flow, and where Tony Stein joined us to discuss CRM UG Focus.
Oh, okay.
Nice. That's Tony Stein has long hands.
And the third one from May, with 1,201 episodes, or downloads, I should say, is the LinkedIn episode where we also interviewed Steve Mordue.
Wow.
So Steve Mordue brings in number 3.
Steve has long hands too. So
good deal.
That just shows if we invite someone with the nice reach, like I don't know, Beyonce or Mark Zuckerberg, then we should get even more, right?
Wait, so January 2nd was Power BI. Where do I start with Power BI?
Okay, the one after that. It was our first. It was the Welcome to 2017.
Oh, okay. Oh, that was how Salesforce is responding to 365 Learning Path. Wow. Crazy when you look back at what we talked about at the beginning of the year.
We had a number of guests. We had Daryl LaBar. We had Guido. We had Marius. Ben Vollmer showed up here. Lots of people. And Neil Benson. Can't forget Neil Benson. But if
you just listed 41 developers.
Well, and Jonas. So yeah, we've had a lot of developers.
5 to 1. Okay, keep
we
going.
Also had Jukka and Neil Benson. We were fairly mixed, between developers and non-developers. Are you going to call Ben Vollmer a developer?
No, I wouldn't.
Ben Vollmer? He does know, I think, around. He used to be. I'm probably going to get a smack on the head from him, but he used to be.
We had Cognata. He's not a developer.
That's right.
No, he's not.
Yeah. So it's interesting looking at what we talked about. It's really kind of been a roller coaster of the year. We had the, beginning of the year, not knowing what's going to happen. Then the July release get announced, which originally was the spring release. So I think we had an episode where we called the spring release. Then in June we had an episode about what we're excited about the July release. Then we have one shortly after saying, it's not coming yet. And then we get excited again when it comes out. So, looking at what we were excited, because we covered all kinds of stuff like Learning Path and LinkedIn and App Source and all this kind of stuff. What do you think is really held up as worthwhile in hindsight? I know it's not Learning Path.
No. Mm-mm.
Yeah, we should record one episode where I don't know how you introduce a visual gestures into audio. Maybe some mechanical voice reading behind the scenes. George is showing the the cutthroat gesture, the words learning path, and he shows like a cut in the throat.
Didn't we do that essentially 2 years ago when we had George's developer minute?
Someone did mention that they miss it because it was
because they're having trouble sleeping now.
Yes,
right?
that was the reason given.
It rocks them gently like a baby. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think the my feeling is V9 was a solid upgrade. In hindsight, it's not the whoa, everything's different that I thought it was at first when he first saw it. There's things that are different, but it's seeds of things that will over time become bigger, like the unified interface. Mm-hmm. That's a big deal, but it's not something that at least enterprise customers in mass will roll out yet with the current limitations. The UI change is nice, but I think you said it, Sean, that we're shifting from white space to gray space.
Yeah, for sure.
Which it's still good. It's still significantly, if you have customers, especially people that have visual imparities, people that have visual challenges, the V9 UI is much better simply because of the borders and the shading and things like that.
The extended theming is a big deal, just in general.
And there's one really big feature that we haven't discussed in any episode, and I can't believe we missed this. You can now save a SSRS report in CRM as a PowerPoint.
What?
Yeah, exactly.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. That's a new feature.
Is it SSRS feature or is it?
No, it's a Dynamics feature.
I think they're
leveraging. It can't be Dynamics.
Yeah,
I think they're leveraging something in SSRS, but not all SSRS features have made it into CRM because CRM has its own report.
No, I understand that, but
no, you could. It's one of the print options. It's one of the print options.
But it's SSRS. It's not CRM feature. It just enables. It's the print options come from SSRS, so it's.
There you go. Then it's just leveraging it. But yeah.
Oh, now I'm just trying to remember the option to print in PPTX. Was there before? Yeah, that's a report and services feature. It's nice that they surfaced it. Mm-hmm. Not that I would use it, but anyway, yeah, it's nice. It's nice that they surfaced. To me, I wish they took down lots of flaky features and just released those seeds. Without too much fanfare. Just those features, and give us some seeds for the future, and let people go around for just on a discovery journey, things like that.
So you just say put in the little seeds, but don't tell anybody about them and let them discover it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that works really well. Anyway, the another thing that I think, besides the changes in the UI, one thing that I realized yesterday, actually, as I was going through and taking some screenshots of forms, is they've really, on some of the system entities, simplified the standard form layouts, especially accounts, because you remember account in 2013, 2015 had all this stuff that you knew nobody ever used. They have gone really far in cutting it down. There's only one address on there. I think some people could argue they've gone too far because there's some really commonly used fields like relationship type and account number that now aren't on there. And I'm now concerned like some new CRM configurator
they removed the account number. That's right. Yeah. So that's,
and the big maps control isn't on there by default either. It's still there, but it's just not there.
What I would give, what the heck, $5 for every customer you have where you had used ticker symbol. It's
we have used it, but it's rare.
Mm-hmm. I've seen it. I've done a lot of financial services implementations. We use it a ton there, obviously. But the native out-of-the-box ticker symbol integration is fine for the U.S., but it's not fine.
That's exactly what was my point.
It's not fine if you go outside.
So
does
localized.
The ticker symbol still hyperlink to Bing Finance or something?
MSN Finance.
It was MSN Finance.
And it's always trying to pull from the NYSE.
Yeah,
so.
It's horrible. It's not the best financial anyway. No, I hate when they link to hard link to services that you can't change.
Mm-hmm.
That's a bit annoying. I understand the importance.
I don't think you see that as much anymore. You used to see it a lot.
Yeah, some legal authorities don't take it lightly. since they bundled IE into Windows. Remember that brouhaha a few years back?
Yep.
And they had to decouple it, so that's since then, you don't see it as much. But I still struggle. There are a couple of things getting on my nerves every day. The one is this the whole JavaScript error dialog. I understand I can disable the experience, and so users won't see it, but I can't believe with all the good brains at their disposal, they can't sort this out. It obviously has to do something with loading and timing for all the different script modules. Surely it's possible to sort this out, right? This is so annoying because out-of-the-box experience is you see this dialogue and customers see it and prospects see it, and this is so annoying.
All right, so let's revisit some of our tool recommendations, George. Are you still using your Arc mouse?
I do, and that's a good sign because when I use it, and I use it kind of half of the time when I'm in the office. It's quite large to travel with, but I use it in the office, and I find it extremely, extremely nice. And
what about Chocolati?
Every now and then, the tool comes across. I don't use it every day, so my experience is that by nature of my work, I don't. I actually don't sit develop every day in and out, and it's kind of the tool that helps you to install things. It's not like you go around, for the entire day and keep installing things. You use it when you need to. Every now and then, I do use it. I have it installed. I didn't uninstall it. Let's put it this way.
Well, let me ask this. Let me ask you guys this. Besides the CRM Audio proper, besides that, the main, the flagship, if you will, what has been your favorite addition to the network? And this isn't like a favorite host thing. It's the
Dynamics 365 Practice Podcast by far, because here's why. Mark Smith, being he's Mr. International Man of Mystery, travel the world, not currently affiliated with any partner.
Sorry, George, best accent in the network. Best accent.
He can interview anybody, and he's got them to talk about things that you wouldn't think they would talk about outside of private conversations. Not bad stuff, but just sharing details and hearing from people from all different kinds of partners and practices about what they do, how they track people. It shows that if you are in the Dynamics community, everybody has some of the same challenges. And you can learn stuff even from people that compete against you.
Right. And for me, I love his practice podcast. But for me, my favorite addition, besides my At Your Service, because I'm excluding that, my favorite has been Implement This. Because I think it has given us a quote unquote, I'm doing the air quotes as well, channel for not a developer type, not a necessarily a super functional type, but it's a happy.
Merry Christmas.
It's like a happy middle, right? And it makes it very receptive to anybody. Anybody can listen to that and gain something out of it. And I've really enjoyed their episodes.
What was the biggest investment this year?
I think. I don't know. I mean, V9 itself was probably a big investment, and what
LinkedIn?
will become with. But
LinkedIn happened last year or this year? Last year.
That's my biggest surprise is how LinkedIn has really seems to pan out, because seeing all the things they're doing with it now, like they're integrating in Word and Office and the people profiles. But I gotta say, I think LinkedIn has gotten better as a service since Microsoft bought it. A year and a half ago, I hated LinkedIn. I never went on there. It's becoming more of a go-to place because there's more stuff and it more than just people promoting themselves. There's actually quite useful content in the forums.
I found, I agree, and I found that surprising. I'm not sure if we can attribute it 100% to Microsoft itself. Perhaps just floating the idea. Perhaps it was just extra funds available for the same people, and they suddenly found themselves doing things they always wanted to do but didn't have funding. For example, just one of the possibilities. Not just because Microsoft bought them, they suddenly turned around and doing all these great things. It doesn't happen like that on these size acquisitions.
But the other thing is they've improved the platform, so it's a better blogging platform. So there's people creating really good content on there.
I know, and that's what I was going to say. Like I met CRM tattoo guy. The only way to reach him is actually on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Like there are people now who use LinkedIn as their primary, life source, motivation, whatever you use it for.
So I think that's where we didn't see what was going on, and what got our attention earlier this year. A lot of it
we were blind.
To be a big thing, and then the one thing we were kind of poo-pooing originally is like the one most valuable thing from it. So,
no, we were poo-pooing integration, and I can still do that. Poo-pooing, that is, of the integration, because it's not there yet. But I understand the challenges and challenges not only technical, but also probably legal challenges as well. So that's. I don't know. It's challenging.
Okay. But anyway, enjoy the clips from the year. Thanks for listening this year, and tune in again next year.
Thanks, everybody. Happy holidays.
Somebody shared with me an email they received from their friendly Salesforce sales rep, and it shows, I think, an interesting picture of how they're responding to the messaging around Dynamics 365. So I thought maybe we could go through part of it and maybe respond real time here to them. So started with, I hope you've had a wonderful holiday season, which is a nice greeting after the holiday season.
Always
I wanted
nice.
to share some competitive information with you in case you hadn't heard. I've learned that the Microsoft CRM product that your company name built on will be obsolete in the next 1 to 2 years.
Whoa.
Bob Stutz, who ran Dynamics CRM, is now the Chief Analytics Officer at Salesforce, and he is acutely aware of the pain and effort that will be required for customers when that replatforming takes place. Okay, first of all, does Salesforce not have one or more releases every year? Are if you're on a current Salesforce release, will it be considered obsolete in 2 to 3 years?
Well, either that or they're saying Microsoft's so innovative that they're just changing everything more frequently than they do. It sounds crazy so far.
No. But let's not take away the credit when it's due. The email says in number 3, I'm jumping ahead, but since you brought the point up, how will Microsoft balance replatforming with innovation? If Microsoft's ability to innovate in CRM stumbles, how would that impact brackets company name? So they do admit that Microsoft is innovator in CRM space, which they never did before.
That as a weird reverse compliment, is like
that's right. Yeah.
They have Microsoft reading this. If Microsoft is going to lose their ability to innovate or stumble, they have the ability and they are an innovator.
It's like if someone has a tremendously powerful and fast car, it's like saying, hey, I know your car is really fast now, but how are you going to avoid speeding fines? Here, there,
And saying that Bob Stutz, now the Chief Analytics Officer at Salesforce, knows acutely knows the pain and effort for replatforming.
Which he brought this pain on.
knows the pain. I can't disagree with that statement.
Let me correct that. He knows how to inflict pain.
Yes.
The man who brought you the swiping right tiles in CRM 2013.
Swiping right? What?
The nav bar tiles. You've already blocked this out of your memory.
No. I did have a tip on using tilting mouse button to navigate that.
Yeah. So you used to have everything on one screen, but that was bad. So now you swipe right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's. You already jumped ahead of me, but let's see. Below is a description and some questions you may want to ask your Microsoft contact or partner. Thanks in advance. May I just say, anytime I get an email that says thanks in advance, it's never anything that somebody would really thank me for, or it's never something you really want to do. It's never thanks in advance for having that ice cream.
I think this is one of the first times in a positive, taking this in a positive, this is one of the first times that I've seen Salesforce do like a preemptive strike on something innovative with Microsoft, right? But the key to this email is they keep talking about business edition. Like you're going to need to go from enterprise to business.
Hold on. Right. That's because they, I think you have to give credit to Salesforce marketing, right? So the email opens up with a dismissal of enterprise edition. Because it says SMFT Dynamics CRM / Dynamics 365 Enterprise Edition brackets rebrand. And that's it. So they dismissed it outright that it's a rebrand, nothing more. And then there's this magic bullet business edition, which is complete replatforming of the entire thing. And they make it sound like it's an upgrade.
Right.
Right, and it's saying like, oh, this new thing is going to be Azure-based instead of the old XRM platform. But in reality, we're all going to be Azure-based soon, and that's not a difference in platform. That's just where your server lives.
I'm not sure that we are not right now.
Yeah, how do you know? That's a good point. So,
but the question is, do you really care?
So, question 1. Will your company be able to move from Enterprise to Business Edition of Dynamics 365? The best response I heard to this one is, can you migrate from Word to WordPad? Okay. Number 2, what will happen when your company is required to migrate to the new Dynamics 365 platform? Which the funny thing is, the person who got this email, we've already moved their environments to Dynamics 365. And so it's like, you mean that where we pushed that button last week and all of a sudden we had a Dynamics 365 environment as mentioned in tip number 802 or something.
Yeah.
So there again, this is definitely grasping at straws. And now again, I don't know if this is the official Salesforce marketing message or if this is the efforts of a lone ninja sales, enterprising Salesforce sales rep or not, but it's interesting, and I've seen in the past where Microsoft sales reps have tried to latch onto uncertainty. You all remember with the NA14, the Salesforce North America server went down for a day, all the tweets that were going on about that, so I wouldn't put it past Microsoft to do the same thing when new changes, but it's in this case, it's pretty flimsy arguments in my opinion.
Absolutely. It's just scare tactics to get a meeting, because once they get into the building, then they can start doing their sales process. So,
can we just step back and tell people what TypeScript is to start with? And if I'm JavaScript developer, where I'm going, is it easy? Is it difficult to learn for me? How do I move there?
Yeah. So I'll tell a little bit of my story, and hopefully that will help others that are maybe looking to go down that route as well. So my story is I'm much more of a back-end developer rather than a front-end developer, which was kind of nice in the CRM world because I didn't have to do a lot of front-end stuff. But as we got into bigger projects, we started to do more and more, and I kept on getting more and more scared of JavaScript because I could write it, but then I couldn't maintain it because I'd want to make a change to it, and I have no idea what this touches or anything else. And so it was always very scary in that sense. So, but TypeScript itself, if I back up a little bit farther there, was created by Anders Harsberg. He's the lead architect for C# and also the creator of Delphi and Turbo Pascal. So huge name in the Microsoft development community. So he's kind of the creator of it. It's open source. It's on GitHub. I just recently had a bug that I submitted that it's getting fixed in a new version of it. So you can make changes and do pull requests, all that kind of fun stuff. But when it comes down to it, really what it is TypeScript is a syntax that adds typing to JavaScript, but only when you need it. And when I say only when you need it, basically every single JavaScript file that's ever been created is a TypeScript file. You could take your project as is, and you can go ahead and rename all of your JavaScript files .js in your Visual Studio or in your VS Code, and you can rename them to .ts, and everything will work just like it did before. So that's one of the huge features it has. It's immediately you can start using it day one and start doing parts of it. You don't have to rewrite everything or wait when you start a project from scratch. You can take what you have and just start using it little by little and adding a little bit of that typing whenever you want to add it. So that's kind of the origin of TypeScript or where it's at, and it makes it very easy for people that are used to more of a typed environment and being able to know what is this I'm passing into this, what is this I'm passing out of this. That really adds that syntax for you to be able to get that information.
So my question then is, for somebody who is not a real developer, and that's on my business card actually now since George has said it to teach me so much. I have, Joel Lindstrom, consulting principal, and not a real developer. Anyway, if you are learning this, if you're a newbie developer, is it the kind of thing, do you need to know JavaScript to start learning TypeScript? It's kind of like you should learn to drive a manual transmission before you learn the automatic, or is it you could just start learning TypeScript?
It's going to be the same amount of pain to learn TypeScript as it is to learn JavaScript if you've never done it before. So, because it's basically this, it's very, very similar. It looks almost exactly the same. The snippet that I gave George was written in TypeScript, but I didn't tell him that. I just pasted it in, and it's like, oh, that syntax isn't valid in IE. Well, no, it's not, but it's going to be valid, and it's valid in Edge, and it's valid in the newer browsers, and that's because TypeScript will actually transpiles the technical term. So it takes the script that you write and it transpiles it into the actual JavaScript itself.
TypeScript is a superset, right, of the JavaScript. So any JavaScript is valid TypeScript file. And
Correct.
Then TypeScript is compiled to JavaScript.
Correct.
Now, how easy it is to actually do your development inside the life cycle of CRM. That is, currently you put JavaScript as a resource file. Is it possible to do, for example, to store a resource file as a TypeScript and make who's doing compiling? Who's going to do the compiling?
Yeah. So the way that that we do it, or that my team does it, is that we do all of our development in Visual Studio, and each time we save, it compiles the TypeScript into JavaScript, and then we use the Web Resource Manager plugin from the XRM Toolbox, and select it shows the JavaScript files that you've actually created, and when you select those, there's an option in the settings to include what are called map files. So it includes map files. It also, when you select that, will also include the TypeScript file itself. So when you say, I want to deploy this JavaScript file I changed, it'll actually deploy that JS file, the map file associated with it, and a TypeScript file. Now what that map file does is it allows you to debug in your browser TypeScript, even though you're actually running JavaScript. The map file will convert the different differences between the JavaScript file to the TypeScript file, and you can actually debug in TypeScript. It's not a perfect. It's really nice.
That's really nice. Now, the one thing, what I would expect if TypeScript is indeed the future, the time will tell. That wouldn't we expect at some point in the future Dynamics 365, or it's going to be 366 by then, I'm not sure, but wouldn't we expect at some point in the future TypeScript to be a native format? So you wouldn't compile it, you just store TypeScript as a resource, and it will be compiled on the fly as needed.
If you really wanted to do that, you could do that right now on your own. There are in-browser compilers for TypeScript, so you could theoretically wire to do that if you wanted to. Yeah. But no, I don't. I mean, so when I say TypeScript's the future, everything is still JavaScript at the end of the day. And so it's still JavaScript is the future, but we just create it all with TypeScript, and we never look at the JavaScript. I mean, how many people are programming in assembly these days? Like hardly anybody, unless they're like a low-level driver person. Everyone else is using a high-level language because it's much more productive. And that's what TypeScript is going to, although it has the beautiful part of really being a very fluid. If you decide all of a sudden that, hey, I don't want to worry about typing, I just want to use this JavaScript thing, and I know it's magic, and TypeScript ignore it, it'll totally let you do that on a line-by-line basis if you want to.
What about the second half was more about the Dynamics 365 for talent, which is focused on hiring managers and recruiters. Hardly a week goes by where I don't see somebody in my network on LinkedIn complaining about recruiters, in that they're tone deaf, they target people without really checking their qualifications. So I'm thinking many of the people who are complaining about recruiters are now going to be selling to them Dynamics 365 for talent. So just recently, Jerry Weinstock was complaining about some messages going on, and my response to him was, don't view this as a hassle. View this as a sales opportunity to sell these people, Dynamics 365 for talent, because they need it.
We see. It'll be interesting if we could see something where we're going to integrate more to whether it's AX or something like that for the HR side once that talent loop is closed. But that's, to me, I don't know. That's more niche-y than widespread.
In fact, the description on the site, the description of the preview program on the website, you see that HR bit is covered first. You're signing up for a preview program, and talent acquisition will come later. But HR bit, I think, covered first.
Is that in CRM or is it in AX?
That's in AX. They're splitting off the HR functionality kind of into its own product,
which makes sense because it should be ERP, shouldn't be CRM.
Why?
Most HR talent kind of things is mainly handled in the ERP. Within the ERP side, that's where you're handling payroll. That's where you're handling insurance. That's where you're handling benefits. No, it's about human capital management.
Human is the keyword, so it's about relationship, right? So it belongs in CRM side.
The interviewing side of things is relationship management. Once they take the bait and become part of your company, then the processes to set them up and onboard them are typically on the accounting side.
Right. At least that's been my experience.
Yeah, right. Fair enough. The one thing that LinkedIn or Sales Navigator seems to be missing is the quality of the relationship. Where do you put it? Like, remember the example they give? Oh, you've got sales meeting with John, and then you discover that Bob from your company, went to the same school as John. What it forgets to mention that John was bullying Bob all this time, so whilst in high school. So how you put add the different different features and qualities of the relationship to to the mix, because LinkedIn doesn't actually describe. You can remove someone, or unsubscribe, or break the link, or whatever, defriend, or what's the word. But how you describe the quality of your relationship with someone? Awkward pause.
Yeah, that's a good point. The notes I wrote down during that were, I think a key point that Satya Nadella made is they're viewing this as where he's made the comment that before this we've sold solutions, but they've really been the start of a solution rather than a complete solution. They're positioning this as more of a complete solution. You've already got LinkedIn. Adding it to Dynamics kind of completes the solution for people in sales roles. That's cool. It's not, though, going to introduce you to more people than you know already. It's going to help you find them, but it's not like you're suddenly going to have everybody in LinkedIn that you can market to. You're still going to have to be connected to those people or find those connections. It's going to help you find the connections. The third thing is Satya Nadella saying relationships sounds a whole lot better than me saying relationships. He's got a great rolling R that I wish I could do.
Yeah, I can't do that either. 3 years of Spanish, never could do it.
Relationships.
Relationships. Is that
See,
close?
George, you gotta show off. You gotta show off.
I gotta think there's more coming than just this. I think this is the obvious low-hanging fruit from LinkedIn. I've got to think there's other ways that this relationship data or this LinkedIn, this wealth of data that is in LinkedIn can be leveraged for even non-sales applications. Well, joining me now is Steve Mordue. Steve is the CEO of ForceWorks, located in the Tampa-St. Pete area. And Steve is a Dynamics MVP, does a lot of work with SMB business, the small to medium-sized customers with Dynamics. And so I wanted to invite him on here because we talk a lot about enterprise clients, which is what I work with a lot. There's a lot of small guys out there. And so Steve, welcome. And I wanted to start off by saying, when you're approaching Dynamics, other than the size, what are the big differences when it comes to SMB versus enterprise-type clients?
Sure. I'd say the biggest difference is just in their resources, both in budget, people, and knowledge. Enterprise customers, would have, significant IT departments, people to work with you guys. Significant resources, budgets, and the typical SMB customer doesn't have any of that. So they definitely are challenged with trying to get a product like Dynamics 365 off the ground themselves, just not really capable of doing it, even at the most basic level. Whereas, the enterprise customers have certainly internal capabilities to do things, and they look for partners like yourselves to really take them to that next level. SMB can't even imagine that level when they're getting started.
Right. And again, I've had some experience with SMB. It's not who we normally work with, but in the enterprise world, you'll have the SQL guy, the Exchange guy or woman. You'll have the desktop application person, the server application person, and in SMB, that's usually one or two people.
If that person exists at all. Yeah, you certainly, in enterprise, you've got a lot of customer resources that you can tap internally to help you kind of accomplish their goals. The typical SMB customer, they don't have any resources. Their IT guy is the guy that knows how to use a smartphone better than anybody else, so he just got elected by default.
Right.
Typically, it doesn't really have any background, but they have a need. They're definitely feeling the similar need that any customer of any size would around wanting to get their arms around their processes, knowing that that leads and opportunities are critical to their success and survival, knowing that whatever solutions they're doing today, spreadsheets or Outlook, is just not really working for them, feeling like they're just losing business or potential business, and so that's what's really bringing them in to look at Dynamics 365.
How do you see the Dynamics 365 message playing with SMB, with the way the world is changing?
I'll tell you what, Dynamics 365 today is an enterprise product, and even before Dynamics 365, when it was CRM Online, it's an enterprise product. SMB never really even was aware of it until it moved to the cloud, and suddenly this enterprise product that used to cost, a lot of money to get set up on premise and launched and everything else was available at the time for like $44 a month. So SMB was now able to buy it, but Microsoft hadn't built it for SMB. It was still an enterprise product. I mean, we built a whole ISV solution, our Rapid Start CRM solution, around that very thing. Let's take this enterprise product and bring it down to size for that SMB customer, which is kind of ironic that an SMB customer is buying a powerful product and then paying a company like us to actually strip power out of it to get it down to a point to where they could be successful with it.
Right.
But then knowing that behind that is all that power that they can turn on. It's something they'll never outgrow. Often SMBs coming from some other smaller CRM light solution that they have outgrown, and they certainly don't want to have to go through that platform change again.
Hey, so Steve, I bought the sports car. Take some of the seats out.
yeah, exactly. Or I got this new 12-cylinder Ferrari. Can you put a 4-cylinder motor in it for me?
Exactly.
Because I can't drive it. It's too powerful, and I'll crash it into a tree. So, yeah, that's that whole thought process. But the SMB customer, they're excited, I think, about the potential of Dynamics, and depending on how it's presented to them by either Microsoft or their partner, they can get unexcited pretty quickly.
Right.
Mainly around just looking at it and thinking that, okay, this is clearly too big for my needs, and I'll never get this off the ground. My users will never adopt it, and those things tend to keep them on the sidelines. That Rapid Start solution was really designed, working with Microsoft, in fact, to try and tackle that particular problem. Plus, many of those SMB customers, you guys are an enterprise partner, so you're dealing with enterprise customers. The SMB space, by and large, is being addressed by managed service providers and Office 365 partners. Certainly there are some smaller CRM shops out there catering to that business, but not nearly enough to cover the need. So what Microsoft is really wanting to do is to activate all these Office 365 partners that maybe are looking at Azure and some of these other services to say, hey, think about Dynamics 365 to add to your mix. That's been a challenge for Microsoft for some time, and continues to be kind of an uphill battle, but we're making some progress there.
So what are you hearing from your prospective clients? Are they moving forward now with Dynamics 365 Enterprise, or are there any that are holding out for the Business Edition?
It's funny. I was talking to a Microsoft person the other week who reminded me of the Osborne computer company from years and years ago. I don't know if you even remember the name, but
I've read about him a little bit before my time. My first computer was a Commodore 128.
They launched the Osborne 1, and it was a very powerful machine, very popular. Everybody loved it, and they got so excited they started thinking about their next version, the Osborne 2, and they went ahead and announced it really, really early. And they were nowhere near having the Osborne 2 ready to deliver, but they went ahead, got excited, and announced it to build up some excitement. Well, what happened is everybody stopped buying the Osborne 1, waiting for the Osborne 2, and it took them so long to get it built, they went out of business.
Right.
So there's always that risk when you announce, something's around the corner, and then it ends up being farther down the path than you think, that customers will sit on the sidelines waiting for that piece to come out. And I haven't noticed much of that yet, but I definitely we're starting to see it now in that SMB customer. At least we do have, a promotional price to be able to offer that SMB customer the enterprise SKU at. So it's not so much a cost factor that they're waiting on, as some customers might be thinking, I think I'll just wait for that SMB product because it'll probably be better suited to me.
So Matthew, you are one of those people that really enjoys training.
What exactly do you mean by one of those people?
I mean,
weirdos.
I'm not a trainer, and I've done it, and I can do it. It's just not I'm not a teacher, and
I don't have the patience for it.
And Matthew's incredible.
It may sound super cheesy, but at its core, I have a lot of empathy because I've been in the I have no idea what's going on seat before, right? And I sincerely care about people succeeding, and so that's what drives me.
So you have, when you saw Learning Path, you were truly excited. This was like a dream come true for you, and you've been playing with it a lot. And I want you to give your honest assessment of what's good about it. What are some of the challenges you see right now?
What were we just saying about expectations of things being perfect, and then all of a sudden things? Exactly. The reason I got super excited about it is because, first of all, we all understand that we spend time making these materials, documentation. We deliver it to the client, and ultimately, maybe it gets used, maybe it doesn't, right? Because frankly, it's not in the right place at the right time. If a user is trying to create an opportunity and they don't know how to use the business process flow, do you think they open up their company's SharePoint, find the file for CRM, and then open the folder? I hope so, but I know it doesn't happen.
Right.
And so I got excited because I thought, well, here's help where they need it, when they need it, and it's in a format that can be very simple and short. Right. But then I went in, I created my own environment as soon as it was released, and I started creating them, and I was like, wow, there's some improvements to be made on this. And then the other thing that became immediately obvious was it is a very simple tool, but its simplicity is deceptive. Because it's such a blank slate that somebody could do something really bad, just like letting somebody configure their own entities or build their own form. They're like, oh, I got this, and you're like, what? Did a 5-year-old build this form? Sometimes, so
it's kind of like every time CRM does one of those things, I have the thought in the back of my mind, like the data import service that lets you import 1 million records really quick. This could be the way you mess up your system really fast.
Yeah. And I think that I still see the huge potential because it is a blank slate, but you have to go into it. If you're thinking about this is a good thing for my organization, you have to build process around it first, right? How are we going to use this, right? Do we want to use the sidebar only? Are we going to use it in more of a list format kind of thing? And I'm kind of brainstorming right now on what are the best ways for this to be leveraged, because I haven't seen a lot of great examples.
Do you find that when you compare the sidebar with the guided process, is one of those two kind of more mature than the other?
The sidebar is more foolproof, in my opinion, where nothing's ever going to change, right? Mm-hmm. And there's a cool feature that you may or may not have noticed, but when you try to place one of the little bubbles on the guided paths, all the fields glow, right? And they glow green or blue. If it's green, orgs are near, right? No, just kidding.
It's blue.
Oh, it's blue orgs here.
Yeah.
No, if it's glowing green, it means.
I wasn't expecting the Sting reference. Very nice.
If it glows green, it means that future updates will not affect the placement of that guided path. Now, the blue ones, Microsoft says, "Hey, you don't have any guarantee from us, right?"
Yeah.
And so, but I don't even know if I trust the glowing green. Right? There might be changes that do affect those placements. So the sidebar is easier to comprehend. It's easier to build, easier to manage. So I think my recommendation for an organization that was starting is start small and do a couple sidebars, see how it works, get some user feedback, and then go from there.
Right, and I think another glitch we found, well, not really a glitch, but some of the documentation has been somewhat rudimentary. And so, one thing that I think they're adding this to the documentation now, but one thing that's not really clear is if you want to create one that you use on mobile, you actually have to create that from within mobile. You have to pull up the mobile simulator and create it from within that. You can't just create one. It looks like you can just create one and check the mobile checkbox, but that will not show up.
And just to be clear, you're not creating it from the mobile app, which would also be a logical path. It's the mobile simulator from a browser.
You have to go to CRM Tip of the Day and find out how to use CRM for tablets, not in tablets. Yes. There's you have to use Chrome or Firefox.
Wow. So it's and it was something where, again, there's the checkbox that exists there that says I want this to be in the web client, I want this to be on mobile, and it seems like really intuitive, like, oh, of course now it's going to be in mobile. And we've had people that have thought it was broken, and we thought it was broken because the learning path wouldn't pop up in mobile. But we did it wrong. It was our fault.
Right. Well, I think there's a couple takeaways here. One is whether you use Learning Path or not, using things like short video clips and things like that are better, in my opinion, than a Word document. If you look at like Derek Borman's Tipster's Guide to on CRM Tip of the Day, that are like 5 minutes to the point, showing how to do something, those are the most effective way to learn stuff.
Absolutely. Right.
And so once you have those and build the content, then Learning Paths is one of several options of how to present that to you. At a minimum, using the sidebar as a kind of a custom help where I have a menu of all my videos from which to choose from is helpful.
And that's where I'm talking about strategy as well.
Andrii Butenko. Welcome, Andrii.
Thank you. Thank you, Joel.
And Andrii is here because he's in the same building I am. Well, not at the minute, but the same building I work from. Andrii works for Hitachi Solutions, and he has just relocated to our lovely city of Greenville, South Carolina. So let me say welcome to South Carolina, North America, and welcome to being actually physically at Hitachi Solutions.
Thank you, Joel. That's really great opportunity.
Oh well, you sound like someone from U.S. elections.
What kind of development work are you doing these days? Because George always gives us a hard time for not being real developers. So I thought we would bring a real developer with us.
I'm doing a lot of development work and mostly related to internal CRM things like JavaScript, like some kind of web resources, plugins, custom workflow activities, development of reports, and integration with externals, different external systems. So how George written in his profile, doing all the complicated things.
Andrii, as a real developer with Hitachi Solutions, what is your go-to tool these days? What's a tool you can't live without? And don't say CRM.
Visual Studio.
Are you using 2017?
No, not yet. I'm still using 2015, and I'm completely happy with it.
Now, come on, give us the tool. You can't just use Visual Studio. I don't believe for a second.
Okay. Of course, I use CRM Toolbox for a couple of things that I'm doing, and of course, I'm using JSON Latimer extensions for publishing of all kind of different extensions to CRM. So that's what I'm using.
What are your top? Let's go top three, and we could do this for everybody. Top three XRM Toolbox tools that your go-to tools.
Okay, so if we are talking about XRM Toolbox, so this is Fetch XML Builder that developed with Jonas Rapp from Innofactor from Finland. Oh, from Sweden. Sorry, from Sweden.
Newest MVP, by the way.
Who is?
Jonas is MVP now.
Jonas is MVP, yeah. Then sitemap editor, and what other? I'm not that recent user of XRM Toolbox, to be fair.
But sitemap editor, they just updated that to allow updates to 365 as well.
Yes.
Right.
To support app designer features. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So how are you seeing it? How do you find that as opposed to App Designer? Do you like it better? Is it more intuitive? Because I haven't used the XRM Toolbox feature
I
yet.
haven't used it yet. I have now. I'm doing other kind of work that's not 100% related to XRM Toolbox. So it's really great question. Let me open my XRM Toolbox and I will tell what I'm using at the moment.
Have you used the sitemap editor in XRM Toolbox, George?
You mean the app designer?
Well, no, I mean not the one that's in the I'm talking about the one in XRM Toolbox.
Yes, but not the latest build.
Okay, great.
Not the one supporting App Designer. I do have one project. Ask me, next or next after next podcast. And I do have the project where we have the need to customize create a couple apps for the people to restrain some people poking around things they shouldn't be poking. Anyway, and so we have this great opportunity to build a nice restrained HR app, and that's where I would need something to customize the map. Perhaps that's going to be a solution. Ask me in a couple of weeks' time. So,
what are your go-to XRM Toolbox tools?
Recently, I found using not only Fetch XML, but actually View Designer. I found that I'm hacking the views left and right, and I can, like on the fly, I can modify views without using, the view. Without using advanced find, I can modify views, I can modify layouts, and associated Fetch XML. That's what's interesting. It's kind of, they tied together, those two tools. So I didn't realize until not so long ago that tools can be chained in XRM Toolbox. So Tanguy done great job sort of speccing the add-ons structure, and one of the features is the chaining tools. So, for example, View Designer can tap into Fetch XML Designer and accept the results back. So you kind of modifying the Fetch XML for this specific view. So I find myself doing a lot of that and using metadata browser a lot lately. I'm trying to understand some of the decisions behind naming of the metadata attributes, and some of them seems to be pretty random.
Yeah.
Like particular when they start appending suffixes to the something ID or something ID name and things like that, and trying to understand when all the exceptions. I think Daniel Kai would be the person to talk to, because SSIS tool needs to know metadata to move data around. So Daniel, I think, knows all the exceptions inside out, exceptions to the rules.
Right.
So that's my kind of favorite. Well, what's yours?
I would say, I'll mention a couple that you didn't. Of course, the View Layout Replicator is an old standby. Although I got to say, that one is dangerous because just today I heard of somebody getting into problems because it will update the system views that aren't supposed to be updatable, like change the first column of the lookup view, so then you have other fields show up in the lookup fields. That's an interesting experience. Kind of a undocumented trick there.
People need to remember XRM Toolbox need to come with big disclaimer that some of the tools kind of dangerous. I tried to use the tool that moves, I think, option set from local to global or something like this. And the tool got stuck in the middle. And I had to restore the database, basically.
Oh, here's another one, and this is in my email from like an hour ago, which is with the View Layout Replicator, you can add related entity views to the quick view, and that will break CRM for you, basically.
And the question is, can you undo it? Because what I found is what I've done is like damage the metadata, like in a way I didn't imagine it's possible to do via API, but it was damaged. It's like I didn't have time, so I just restored.
Yeah, so you can do that, and that's what this person did. They just restored, and they found just by mistake that removing that column made the view work again. The other one that I used today, actually, or recommended to somebody today, was the access checker. That's useful for when you get those weird errors that says user with ID and then along GUID does not have PRV user visualization. and who knows what that means. But with
I
the
know.
access checker,
I know, because yes, Joel, I completely agree. Those messages are unreadable, but they are unreadable only for first 20 or 30 times. When you see these messages every day, you can just guess, okay, PRV underline, Carrier 2, or something like this, and entity name. And even you, if it's not a custom entity, you know that object type code number for every particular standard entity.
Yep, exactly. And the third one in my top three that haven't been mentioned is Andy Popkin's bulk workflow tool. If you want to run a workflow in bulk on more than 250 records, it's a great way to do it.
Yes,
and guys,
I find myself using it all the time as well. Sorry, I forgot to mention.
Guys, I believe we forgot to mention one tool we are using almost all the time, and we haven't told about that. Has anybody heard about Ribbon Workbench?
I never heard about that. What is this Ribbon Workbench of which you speak?
So the Ribbon Workbench is the tool that created with great guy with Russian last name Durov from United Kingdom, and it helps you to make modification of ribbon not so painful as it was in 2011 time.
Okay, but here's my confession is I can't get used to running it in the XRM toolbox. I'm just so used to running it from within Dynamics where it's always been.
I agree. I use it outside of XRM toolbox. I mentioned that it is not. I mentioned it not like a tool, like a part of toolbox, but separated tool that is used outside of XRM toolbox.
Yeah, those are great. We could have a whole episode of just going through our favorite XRM toolbox. We could get, how many tools are there now? I was looking at the GitHub page where it's got the list of current, and that's ever expanding, ever growing.
Jeez. There's 66 total in the store, 36 new ones, and 13 with updates needed on mine anyway. But yeah, in the store there's 66.
In researching this, I found, I'll just post a link here. 3 months ago, this idea was posted in the CRM Ideas site by our friend, Business Solutions MVP Neil Benson. And so I think we all need to recognize that this feature, Neil Benson's idea. And we should call this the Neil Benson Memorial Dynamics 365 Service Administrator role.
Okay.
So every time you talk about it, you gotta
Did you
give
grant
credit to
Neil
Benson.
Benson to the user X?
Well, joining us now is our favorite MVP, Brit Aussie, Neil Benson.
Thanks, Joel. You were fumbling for the right kind of platitude there, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, you live on every continent. I'm waiting for you to move to Antarctica. So I would call you an Antarctican. All right. So earlier we were talking about, Neil, how you suggested in the CRM Ideas site the Dynamics 365 Service Admin Office 365 role. So we are calling that the Neil Benson Memorial Dynamics 365 Service Admin account.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's I'm really impressed. They leapt on my idea just 2 or 3 months after I suggested it, and it's live in production worldwide. So we're really happy about that.
But if I'm not mistaken, you also coined the Dynamics 365 Customer Engagement moniker as well.
Well, I was looking through the old archive of the MVP alias, and you know what? I can't find evidence that I was the first person to coin it. It actually goes to Rick McCutcheon. I found an email from Rick last July to say that he thinks Dynamics 365 Customer Engagement is a good new name.
So if you don't like that term, it's Rick's fault.
If you like it, well done, Neil.
It just reminds me of the Chinese nursery rhyme, about the two brothers. The little brother called Cheng, and the first brother's called Tiki Tiki Tembo No Sa Rembo. Well, he's got such a long name that he falls down the well, and he, comes to serious harm because nobody can remember his name.
Oh my God, I remember that. Oh my Lord, I haven't heard that forever. But I remember exactly what you're talking about. That's so funny.
Impressive, you remember the full name there, Neil. So,
well,
Neil,
it's not. He didn't get it all.
I didn't get it all. It's
Riki Tiki Tembo, No Sa Rembo, Chairai Ruchi, Riki Niki Tembo.
Something like that.
Yeah, a little longer.
Hey there, so Jukka Niiranen joining in the discussion, and I'm truly a non-developer, so definitely a citizen here, ready to punch out some of the devs in the ring.
Well, Jukka is kind of interesting representative of citizen developer, because I think for 2 or 3 years he managed to fool me into thinking that he is a developer. So he's probably qualified to represent citizen developers as the person who managed to fool developers into thinking that he's one of their own. Well, the next one is Jonas.
Yes, and I'm Jonas. I am definitely a developer. I come from that side. I tend to get a bit scared whenever I see a user interface. But in this case, this discussion we're having, I'm not really sure which side I might end up in when we close it out.
Don't say that. Don't say that. Lucas.
Hey, I'm Lucas. I'm a technical architect in the CRM world. I think I'm definitely not on the citizen developer team here, but my concerns are not all strictly development related. I think as we talk it out, there will be a lot about deployment and operations and all that not so fun stuff from a development perspective. But I'm looking forward to the conversation.
And I'm leaning towards team citizen developer, but I sometimes have sympathies to the grumpy developers. Can we call the team grumpy developer George and the Dubinskis? All right, so this all came about a while ago on Twitter, and like I said, this is like my Twitter feed come to life here, because I believe it started with Jukka posting about a presentation that you had done in Finland for about Microsoft Flow, about citizen developers, and Chris Cognetta chimed in saying there's always room for one more citizen developer. And then there were comments from some others here about how citizen developers give them nightmares. So I said, this sounds like a good podcast topic. So Jukka, what was to set the stage, what was the presentation you did about Microsoft Flow?
Yes, actually that was for the CM Saturday event in Oslo, Norway. And I chose Flow as a topic for my presentation, not because I'm really so familiar with it, but actually wanted to kind of dig into the current state of Flow and see what can we actually do with it today, because especially now with the next release coming up, the July release, whatever that's going to be, with all the integrated flows into the Dynamics 365 customer engagement UI, then that's going to be a question that people will sure start asking more about. So what's going to be the role of Flow then in terms of compared to workflows that we have in the XRM platform already? So that was kind of my reasoning why I started to then dig deeper into what's the current state of Flow and what you can do with it. And then, of course, I mean, the events had a business track and a technical track, and it was on the technical track my presentation, so I had to also then cover kind of target also the dev crowd's agenda there a bit, and then compare the capabilities of Flow to Logic Apps, and discuss about what's going to be the sort of admin controls and the DevOps story there. So yeah, I'm not going to go deeper into the content there, because you can then find the presentation from my blog, but I think that definitely Flow is going to be sparking up lots of that kind of discussion about what can the customers, or what can the kind of admins and power users of Dynamics do already on their own, and what's going to be then the where do we then need actual integrations done by developers when you want to connect applications like SharePoint and XRM, for example. So that was kind of the background story of where we started the big debate this time around.
Yeah, and then Lucas chimed in and said, "Y'all are going to drag, shame, coerce me into using Flow despite every bone in my body disliking it." Although I got to ask you, Lucas, doing a Google search today, I came across, searching for something about Flow, I found a blog post you wrote a while ago about using Flow to call workflows. So I mean, you've used it before.
Yeah, and I think that gives me a leg to stand on when I say I don't like it. I was very excited about Flow, right? I mean, I'd been a if this then that user from way back when, and when I heard that Microsoft was going to create an if this then that killer, I was very excited about it. And when I got in and took a look at it, I was a little underwhelmed with its capabilities as far as working with Dynamics 365 organization and things you could do. And so that blog post I wrote, I hadn't done anything deeply technical in a while, so I had been trying to do a lot of work with the web API and the OAuth authentication and trying to connect all sorts of things to Dynamics 365 that I don't want to say they ought not be connected, but you don't see a lot. Like, okay, let me get Python talking to it. Let me get Node.js talking to it. And so when I came into Flow, I looked and I said, well, one of the deficiencies with Flow is I can't run a workflow. And I mean, just to put this in perspective, I mean, this was 10 months ago. So I know that Flow has advanced since then, but I looked at it and said, there's no easy way for me to run a workflow in Flow. There are certain fields that I can't access in Flow. There are things I can't do. So let me see how far I can push it with some custom code, right? Because I mean, I'm a developer from way back, and I've never had a problem that I can't make better or worse, I guess, depending on your perspective, with a sprinkling of custom code. And so looking at it and saying, okay, now here's how we can take Flow kind of to this next level of capability. And at the end of it, I was satisfied that I had figured it out, but I was really dissatisfied with what I had to do to just do something simple like execute a workflow. So I definitely think it's an interesting technology, right? And I'm interested to see where it goes. But very much, 10 months ago, me was concerned about its capabilities and functionality. In the time since, I've developed other concerns about its use in projects, particularly enterprise projects. But I don't want to monopolize all the time here, so just pause.
Now I'm trying to remind myself. My mom's name is Florence, and some people have called her Flo. And I'm trying to remind myself when you say you hate Flo that you're not hating my mother. Okay.
No, I don't know your mother, so I'm sure she's a perfectly pleasant lady.
And then Jonas threw down with the citizen developer is my eternal enemy. Those are hard words, Jonas. Who are these citizen developers that are your enemies?
Those are words of, harsh words, since I'm getting scared. And the reason I do that is, as Lucas says, the platform for Flow is getting even better and better day by day. And that scares me, because then they can accomplish even more. And I have to be really confident that when I have designed a system, I shouldn't have any pitfalls in it that could be used. That someone creates this flow that fix the data this and that way, and then they shouldn't have been able to do that, because you can't do it in the UI, and then suddenly it's possible by using Flow. So it opens up a lot of more possible sources of error. I just know, my own first experience of Flow was I tried this super simple get the tweets with some keyword and post it to my Facebook timeline, which ended up in 3,000 Facebook posts in a couple of minutes because I missed some filter somewhere. And that's not a good thing. And imagine when that happens in an enterprise system. So maybe I was just burned by that first experience, but I think giving the power is... I really like that. From a personal perspective, I encourage that. I tell my kids, go look and see what you can do. How can you make your day easier? How can you get control of your life? And in a work perspective, how can you get control of what you do and make yourself more efficient? But in this case, I am responsible for the system they are messing with. That's, I guess, sums up my fear.
This is exciting. We have two guests with us this week. We have Guido Preite from Italy, and we also have a baby MVP, Marius, also known as the CRM Viking. So what we needed was more Norse blood on the podcast, and so we asked the Viking to join us.
And in preparation of the podcast, I saw Thor Ragnarok this weekend, so I did my part.
All right, so Marius, you have been MVP since the beginning of November, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Or was it October? Okay. Has your world changed? So other big things happened in your life?
Yeah, so it came along with everything else in my life. So new apartment, kids, all that stuff. So I just got everything in 1 month.
Wow. It must have been a lot to take in.
Yes, I completed life in like 2 weeks.
You leveled up like 3 levels. All right. And Guido, what is your how long have you been an MVP and what do you do in your day job?
Yeah, I'm MVP from January 2015. So it's like 3 years now, I think. And mainly I am a developer. So I'm a real developer, not a citizen one. And I work for a partner, so I work for several customers and different projects. So.
All right, so I guess we should knock the common discussion topics out of the way up front. Marius, Mr. Viking, are you a real developer or a citizen developer?
Well, according to Jason, I'm the only one who's got the custom data provider working.
So that would, I think, qualify you as a real developer. What's your opinion on Microsoft Flow?
I'm not ready for this question yet. Yeah, so I think Flow is a great tool, but it's the new poster boy for it depends. But I'm really excited about the V9. Like virtual entities are going to solve 90% of the problems I face as a developer. And the unified interface is the next natural step, I believe. The portfolio is so big now, so being able to build a nice-looking app from the Home.Dynamics portal is going to be the natural step from thinking of sales and customer service and project service and so on as separate areas. Now
yeah, for sure. So what is the deal with the developer documentation for V9? As I understand it, there really isn't an SDK anymore. It's all broken up into different pieces. What's going on there? Are we real developers?
Yeah, does that bother you, or did they break it up in a way that made sense?
Yeah, I don't want to be honest about this because someone from Microsoft might hear this.
Now, Guido, you need to say that in Italian because Italian is the language of opera, and you got tragic operas where everybody dies, and so say it's a tragedy, but do it in Italian, please.
È una tragedia.
These sound so much sadder.
It did, didn't it?
Auditorio on here.
Yeah. It's a strange situation because I appreciate the efforts they are doing to consolidate the documentation. No? They are doing a very good job for the new site to consolidate, to provide one place for the information. But they decide, okay, we don't ship anymore the SDK. I know that maybe 90% of CRM Dynamics world don't care about the SDK, but the 10% cares. And there are still some important missing pieces that are not published there outside that were present inside the SDK. Like, for example, inside the SDK, there was an entity metadata Excel file where you can go and check directly, okay, which are the standard attributes of one entity and their type, if they can be used for create or for update. So this information is missing, for example, and is important.
Yeah, also small stuff like there's a lot of examples shipped with the SDK, and the thing about examples with actual code is that they check that it compiled, but the online documentation has a lot of code errors that just you copy and paste it into Visual Studio, and it just says no. Obviously, you can't do this.
So, but again, we do it for fun. So, I should have a drum roll before this, but our tip 1000 is how to close a phone call. So, somebody asked me one time, how can we automatically close phone calls? We expecting users to hit the close phone call button. That's a lot of work, and nobody wants to do that. So, how can we automate that and do it right? Now, I've been reading the biography of Theodore Roosevelt. And if you read it, he's all about strenuosity and doing things hard. So it's like he said, far better dare mighty things, win glorious triumphs, even though checkered by failure, than to rank with those poor spirits who neither enjoy nor suffer much because they live in the gray twilight that knows not victory or defeat.
So when you just press the button, you are in a twilight.
Exactly. We don't want to close phone calls in a mediocre way. We want to do it right.
Exactly.
So we present how to close a phone call the hard way. All right, so first of all, when the user is done with the phone call, they create a note against the phone call, and the subject line needs to say, I'm done. The workflow triggers by the number being created, and it looks for the check condition subject with the line, I'm done. Because you don't want this firing for every single note that you create. That would be bad. And then that creates a task record. The task being created triggers a Microsoft Flow. Microsoft Flow updates Facebook with just got off the phone. The Facebook updates triggers an if this then that rule. IFTTT adds a row to a spreadsheet in Dropbox. And we don't want to we realize not everybody lives in the Microsoft world. People use these third-party tools, and Microsoft has opened up the door with Flow and other tools to use these. So we don't want to limit ourselves just to Microsoft tools. And then the spreadsheet, of course, update triggers Zapier to send an email to, and we have a special phone, you have to set up a special Exchange mailbox, close phone call at yourcompany.com. But, we don't want so then that sends, of course, to the forward-in mailbox, and Dynamics 365, using an auto case creation rule, picks up the message and adds it to a queue. And the case creation rule converts email to a case. SLAs are used, of course, to escalate the case to an escalation queue, which triggers a workflow. The workflow creates an announcement record. Now, I should mention, those are being deprecated in a future release, so we'll need to update this with maybe tip 1500, maybe. And then, George stepped in and said, we need some developer bling on this. So, George, then what happens next?
Yeah, okay. So the announcement record plugin pushes announcement to Azure queue, Service Bus queue. Then we, of course, pick it up from that queue by Logic Apps. So Logic Apps listens on that queue and sends SMS message using Twilio.
Now that's the kind of stuff that you could use a Flow for that, but real developers sneer at Flow. Right. So real developers, of course, use.
No, we need SLAs. We need proper monitoring on this stuff.
You want to make sure when you're closing a lot of phone calls, you don't overload Flow.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Or you run out of money on Flow.
Exactly.
And then the message is picked up by Azure Function. Yeah, come on, go on. That's dev stuff. You wouldn't understand anyway, so just keep going. Azure Function signals a listener, so you need to run a special small program on your client machine that sits there and listens. So Azure Function would signal a listener on the client machine. And then this listener, what do we do then?
UI automation.
Oh yeah, we thought we'd use UI, the latest and greatest UI automation tool that allows basically you to drive UI of Dynamics 365. So it literally plays the role of the user, so you don't have to sit in front of the computer, and it finds this announcement, so opens up, finds this announcement, and deactivates it. So then back to kind of then it is back to non-developer.
Yeah,
land.
so then that deactivated announcement triggers the workflow, and the workflow closes the phone call. So there you have it. How to close the phone call in 21 easy steps.
Yes.
Brilliant.
There's no Power BI in there, though.
Okay, so if you go to CM Tip of the Day, and after the session we're going to publish Tip 1000, so you'll be able to read. In case you weren't taking notes during the session, we know there were 21 steps, and if you only got 15 of them, we want to make sure that you can do it. I would love to see somebody actually try Tip 1000 and just see what happens. This has been CRM Audio, the Dynamics 365 podcast, with Business Solutions MVPs George Dubinsky, Joel Lindstrom, and Sean Tabor. This podcast is a production of Dynamic Podcasts, LLC. Follow us on Twitter at CRM Audio. Subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn, or any place else that fine podcasts are available. You can email us at voice@crm.audio with questions or topic suggestions.